Kimbra and I are here celebrating, though we're not together. We are celebrating I have a strawberry margarita.
And I have eggnog with some special stuff, and it's
Kimbra's
almost
gone. So we've been celebrating for a little while here. But, people
drunk.
have been, I'm halfway there. Anyway, Kimbra and I have been doing these podcasts for a while. I was so excited when she said yes, that she would do one with me. I kind of just threw it out there one day and said, hey, we should do a podcast. She said yes. So I jumped on it. I was like, okay, we're making it happen. So people, have been watching our shows for a while. We're building up our audience. And people have started asking a little bit more about us, because some of our audience are my friends and some are her friends, and we're hoping to branch out to more people. So people are asking, a little bit more about us. So we decided we'll talk about
us. Our favorite subject.
Kellie,
no, I'm kidding.
Well, the funny thing is, when I first came up with it, Kimbra was like, what are we going to talk about? And I was like, well, we'll share our stories. We have so many interesting stories. And then we started talking about it, and it's like, oh, do you really think anybody cares? Do you really think anybody's going to find that interesting?
Kellie was like, we haven't been notorious enough. We haven't been bad enough. We're
not scandalous enough.
Yeah,
we haven't really had these scandalous lives. We've lived pretty straight and narrow lives. Yeah. So we decided to, expand and have guests and talk about hot topics and relationships. And basically right now we're calling upon our friends to be guests. We do have a lot of interesting friends, though.
That's true.
So we've been friends for so long. We've done many projects together, which, we've talked about. Road to Hollywood was a talent contest. Kimbra produced it. Basically, I was the behind the scenes business manager.
Well, no, you produced it, but I did the talent.
You hosted it and you took care of the talent. It was really a joint effort. I mean,
that's true.
We have had so much fun doing our creative projects, and we really complement each other. Kimbra's more creative and I'm more business-minded.
She's more and techie for sure.
Yeah. So, we really work well together. I helped her on her show that she produced, and
the Bob Hope,
March on Bob Hope, which was a tribute to Bob Hope, where Connie Stevens came and Ernest Borgnine did a little piece for us. And it was a real great show. I mean, it was a night show that packed the house.
I got to say, thanks to Robert Earhart for that too. I forgot to say thank you for him. He's the one that brought me in. Yeah, he brought me into the meet with the museum, the Marchfield Air Museum out in Riverside. So they were great people, and we got all these people to donate designer gowns and trips, and it was a great fundraiser for the museum. And then I just thought, who do I know that's ever worked for the USO? Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened.
Made that a special night. It's so moving. I was crying. I was in tears.
Well, you cried everything anyway.
I'm a wuss. But it really did. It moved me. And it was, great to watch and be a part of. I was really honored. And then you've also contributed to the Tales of the Lioness, which is a book I put together for, it was stories of women who have overcome just women who showed courage. And you were talking about your mother, and your life. And so you shared that. So we've done quite a bit together, other than, being friends for all these years. So.
If you like our videos, go ahead and click on like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
So I'm really glad that we're doing this podcast together. We're having a blast. We're having a great time.
You guys may not be having a fun time, but we are.
Yeah. We hope that people are enjoying what we're doing.
Yeah, sure we do. Yeah. And we hope that you're learning. Well, we hope that you're learning along with us, because one of the reasons why, I said yes to doing the podcast was because I thought, well, why would anyone want to hear about what we have to say? Like one of my good friends, Corey, asked me, like, why would people care about you guys, Kimbra? And I was like, good point. But, so we thought, well, maybe we're going to talk about not controversial, but somewhat controversial hot topics. And we'll talk about it in a way that would help us understand what's going on, and that maybe there's other people like us that don't have all the time in the world to do a lot of research on major issues. So by us discussing it, maybe they will, learn something too. But then, me, I was like, oh, but we got to have entertainment. That's my whole thing, So we're like, so that's how that, that's
so
one of the reasons why we did it.
Our guests are usually from the entertainment business, and Just a variety. I mean, we're open to whatever, and we're just doing a variety of subjects that interest us,
Sure.
and then giving our friends a platform too, which we hope is interesting to other people. Another, through the years, we've also done quite a bit of double dating. We dated guys
that much, but we have done some.
Yeah, some. I guess we've dated a couple of friends, and
no, we dated a long-term boyfriend I had a friend that I thought would be good for Kellie, and it turned out to be, pretty good for the time that we were dating.
Yeah,
and
it was more about the foursome than our romance.
It was music. A lot of music was involved since, my ex-boyfriend was a musician, and his friend was a musician, and he's turned out to be they were always famous somewhat, but this guy that we're talking about turned out to be really famous now. So we'll leave out the name of the band. Anyway, but we had a lot of time. We had a lot of fun times. Let's just put it that way.
Then the other ones.
Yes, the other ones.
Can I say the names? Greg,
Danny,
and Greg. We double dated with them quite a few times too. They weren't friends, but we were the friends, so we ended up double dating with them, and that was fun too. So we've really done a lot together. Really had a lot of fun. Together.
And we used to go to the famous Casa Vega. Shout out to Casa Vega on Ventura Boulevard.
Yep. We would have our strawberry margarita.
Yeah, she's living the tradition. Yeah, I miss Casa Vega, and I miss going out, to places like that in the first place. But maybe
everything's
next year.
Kind of shut down now. So
yeah.
So anyway, well, we're going to talk it's all about Kimbra.
Oh my God, it's all about me.
Inquiring minds want to know, and I'm sure there's some things that maybe I haven't even asked you before, because I do feel like I know you so well. But I know that you are a very talented musician and actor, and I've been to many of your performances of both
little plays.
I want to take this opportunity to ask you, which do you prefer, music or acting?
Whew. Well, I would say music was and is my first love, because when I was a teenager, it got me through many hard times. We all go through angst as teenagers for one reason or another. And my father was the one that actually introduced me to music. I know we've talked about this before, but I think my dad would have loved to have been an artist. He passed away young from a brain tumor, but he wanted to. I think he would have liked to have been an actor or a musician. So he kind of turned me on to all this music when I was, 12 or 13. He was like, you gotta listen to this girl, you gotta listen to this person. And so music was my first love. I got into an original band even when I was in high school. I was writing music with a band that lived in LA, and I used to come up after I got my driver's license, and I would go up to LA, and I was going to Lee Strasberg Theater Institute because my father, again, had paid for 2 years to go to Lee Strasberg Theater Institute because one of his good friends was a teacher there. And this friend of ours, Doug, and he had been in a lot of movies. And so he was teaching at Lee Strasberg. So my dad was so shy that he couldn't even do the monologue. They always give you a monologue for your first thing, So he was like, I can't do it. So I think he was only in it for 2 months. So he said, can I give the rest of the time to my daughter? She's still a teenager. So they had a teenage program. So that's how I got to go there. And I remember it was so intense. It was the method acting, right? Lee Strasberg started in New York, but he had a LA school. And it was so serious. And I'll never forget, it was really intense. And I was really young. I think it was 16. And I was just super, oh my God, these people. And they're all crying, and they're in the back of the room, and they're doing, and I'm I was really intimidated, but I learned a lot. That was the most professional place that I had ever been to, as far as people really taking it so seriously. Mm-hmm. And so I did that for 2 years, and then I eventually went on to Third Street Theater, which Susan Peretz was a teacher there, and she branched off and started a little theater company, and I started studying with her, and that's how I met a lot of friends that I still am in touch with today, like Amy Mitchell, if you're listening. So music was my first love, and then when I was in that band, the original band I told you, it was so, being in a band is like being in a marriage because you guys all have to get along, you have to work around each other's schedules, you have to compromise. And I was very young, and so I didn't really take it as seriously. Maybe I did take it seriously. I always had a good work ethic, but when things started getting like, people weren't coming to rehearsals and this and that, and spouses and girlfriends started getting in the drama of it all, I kind of like, hey, I'm out of here because I'm going to do my own thing. So I started doing some recordings for other people, and I got out of that band. And then I started, at the same time I was trying to do acting. So after I went to Lee Strasberg, I had a boyfriend who was in the movie business, and he was like, his good friend of his was producing a movie. And he said, my girlfriend is just graduated from acting school. She's real serious about it, blah, blah, blah. And so it turned out to be Lawrence Bender was the producer of the movie, and it was Reservoir Dogs, but Lawrence really hadn't done anything yet except for a thriller. He had done this like sort of thriller movie, which I think David Duchovny was the star, but I don't remember about that. Anyway, my boyfriend's brother was a very successful screenwriter, and so he had all these friends. Him and his brother had all these friends, and so he said, Kimbra wants to be an actress. To Lawrence, do you have anything in the movie? And he's like, well, it's all guys. The whole movie is really all men. And I was thinking, oh, he probably just said that because he doesn't want me to come in, I just thought he was making it up, So I go to the set, and he goes, but you can come down the set. We'll see if there's something, we can do for her. Like maybe she can audition for a little extra part or whatever. So I go down there, and I read the script, and he was right. It was all men, right? There was one scene where they pull a woman out of a car that I think they'd already shot that. And I don't think she had any lines. They just pulled her out of a car. And that was like the only woman in the whole movie. So he was like, well, we might have this waitress. And so they were thinking about maybe auditioning for me for that. And then I auditioned, but then they never really used me for anything. So, but the funny thing is I got Taft-Hartley'd into the movie. So, so I'm on the original producers list. So I still get residuals from that movie to this day.
Oh,
and it's
fun.
Like, it's a lot of residuals because that movie, oh my gosh, it's been sold. And, so every 2 months I get stuff from that movie, and I always think,
that's cool.
And I always think, and I'm not in it, and I always think, oh gosh, Harvey Keitel must be making a fortune, because he was, I think, a producer and in the movie. And I always think Lawrence Bender. I'm like, thank you, Lawrence. And then I started doing little things, like I was on the very last season of In Living Color. They did, I think it was the last year, I did a little bit, and I worked with Jim Carrey. I didn't work with him, actually. I was getting my makeup done, and he kept coming in, is she done yet? Is she done yet? And I remember I already knew who he was at that point, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Jim Carrey, and he was so nice. And, and he was like, of course, we're very talented. So I did that, and then I did a couple of B movies, and then I did some commercials, and that's the most money I ever really made, was on these commercials that I did, because they, as back in the day, commercials used to pay a lot of money. So then I started sidetracking back into music. I did those USO tours that you know about, which were like a big highlight for me, because I got to travel everywhere. Yeah. And we went everywhere. We went everywhere from to the Middle East to Korea I didn't go on the Panama tour, but our group went to Panama. And then the best trip I ever did was to Africa. We went to Africa. Oh. I think that was one of our last trips too. And my friend Bridget, if she's watching, she'll know we had the best time on that trip. And I think Bridget went to Africa. Yeah, pretty sure she did, because there was a couple trips that some of us would go on, some of us wouldn't. But I remember at the time, I'm like, they were calling me and they're like, do you want to go to Africa for a USO tour? And I was like, oh, I guess. I mean, I think I can fit it into my schedule. I didn't appreciate like how amazing it was going to be, right?
Yeah.
So then we go, and I was like, it was so beautiful. It's like, the most beautiful, amazing place you've ever been. And they treated us so well. Like these guys, the Americans that have been there for a long time, they hadn't seen any people at all, let alone Americans, but for a long time. So when we got there, they were like, oh my God, they planned a big tour on this cruise that we went down the river, and they would have music playing for us all night, and food, and it was just amazing. But we didn't always get really nice rooms on all these tours. It just depends on where we were going. They were usually clean, but sometimes we had a bunk with 2 and 3 people. But when we went to Africa, we all got these Hilton hotel suites. I'll never forget, because I was thinking, wow, this is really nice. So we all had a little suite in the Hilton Hotel, and we had these little balconies in Africa. And I remember going out on the balcony, and there was monkeys on our balcony that were just hanging out, right? And I was like, oh my God, there's a monkey on my terrace. And it wasn't like Lion Country Safari. This was the real deal, you know? And I just felt like this is so amazing that we were living with nature, you know? And a lot of Africa's like that. And you see the giraffes, and a couple of us ended up going on a safari, I believe, but I didn't go because I had another trip that I wanted to go on too. So that's the most amazing trip I ever went, was Africa. And to this day, I would love to go back, but that was like a once in a lifetime thing, you know? So,
wow.
and
yeah,
I know that,
yeah,
you hear how beautiful it is,
how
right?
beautiful Africa is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, I guess I was being naive because I didn't know anyone that had been. So I was like, when I got there, I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my trip with the USO. But, and those women, I still stay in touch with them. And we've some of us are still performing, and some have become mothers and are taking care of kids, and some are doing both.
Yeah. Wow.
So
and now you're doing music again.
I'm doing music again, and I'm creating music with a friend of mine, Robert DeLuca. And we've, you know, during the pandemic, you approached me about this, and I thought, well, you know, I'm going to really utilize this time where I can't go anywhere, where I can't teach voice, I can't do what I normally do. So I thought, oh, Kellie's thing, that sounds wonderful. And we already talked about that. And then I thought, you know, I want to play the guitar again, because I used to play the guitar when I was like 10, and I was okay. But I thought, you know, I really want to practice guitar and start playing with the guitar when I sing. So I've been doing that. And then I reacquainted myself with a friend, Robert, and he has all these songs because he had been in the music business with his nephew, Rocco DeLuca. And he's been out of it for a little while. So we reconnected, and he played me some of his songs. And then I said, you know, let's just start writing some new stuff. So we wrote we've completed one. We were aiming for at least 4 by now, but because things have come up, we haven't had the time. So we've done one, we're working on a second one, and I want to get at least 4 before I debut them on, you know, maybe Facebook Live, I'm thinking. So, yeah, so that's it. So in answer to your question, music is my first love. I love acting though, because it's so fun. It's so cathartic. I used to love doing these dramatic plays. Like when I was out of Lee Strasberg, I was really into, like, I'm the serious actress, and I was doing all these things to help me recreate sad moments, you know. And then I found comedy, and I thought, you know, gosh, comedy is so much easier, and it's not easy. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, no, that's
hard, but it's easier on my body and my mind.
Emotionally, it's easier. More fun, I guess.
It's more fun because I always feel energetic afterwards, whereas when I would do dramatic stuff, I'd always feel drained because I had to recreate. For me, I would, like, oftentimes I'd play music before I was going to do a sad scene, because I was like, I've got to have the real tears. I'm really going to do this, you know? And so music was the thing for me to get me to that place. And then after a while, I was like, oh, the heck with this. I want comedy, you know?
I want to laugh. Yeah, and have fun.
And I've read that a lot of actors that I admire say the same thing. You know, I've read that, you know, Robert De Niro and Meryl Streep and all people like that, they always say that. They say they turned more to comedy because they were tired of giving, like, you know, call it a pound of flesh every time you want to emote.
It's so heavy, you know? And it stays with you. It does, I think, weigh on your body and your soul. Yeah.
So that's why I like comedy. But so that's it. So I want to do more of both. But music is it's hard because it's subjective. Everybody likes different kinds of music. So, you know, I got to do, I guess, what I like doing best, and hopefully it will resonate with other people. You know? Yeah,
that's what they say. Follow your passion. Follow life's too short, so do it.
Right.
Yeah. So you say you drove up to Los Angeles. You grew up in Orange County, right? Is that
mostly? I was actually born at UCLA Hospital, and then I lived in Los Angeles until I was about 7 or so. And then my mom was actually a career woman. She was kind of ahead of her time. She was up and coming, working for these small electronic companies. And so this one company in Palo Alto recruited her, and they said back in those days, they were like, we're moving you up there, they give you all this money and they move you. And now they don't do stuff like that anymore. But so anyway, we were in Palo Alto, and it would have been a great place actually to live because the schools there are really good in Northern California. But at the time we all missed Southern California. So we ended up moving back down. And then a company in Orange County heard about my mom. So they said, will you come work for us? So that's how we ended up in Orange County. And at that time, it was all orange groves, which the Valley was actually like that too for a long time, I heard too. And I stayed in Orange County. It was very conservative at that time, and it still is. It's getting a little bit more diverse, but the stereotype of Orange County that it's super, super conservative. They always used to say behind the orange curtain, right? And Richard Nixon's from here, he was born here in Yorba Linda. So they always, talk about, Richard Nixon. So it's very conservative. And again, it was, but, things are changing. We have a little more diversity. Katie Porter, as we talked about before, she's in my parents' house that I didn't grow up, that we lived in. She's the congresswoman, I guess it is, or the councilwoman, or the districtwoman for our district, congresswoman for our district. And then, but in a way, actually, I've been spending a lot of time down here during the pandemic. And in a way, it's kind of nice because it's so, we're at the house that we lived in, it's still here, and it's very remote, and it's up in the hills, and it's hard to find. A lot of people that come up here, they go, where the heck is this place? Like, even with Waze and stuff, my friends are like, I had to turn here, turn there, turn here. They got here, and it's a little remote. You'll see when you come out here. So I've been glad that I've been hauled up here since during the pandemic. And
keep you safe.
Yeah, and doing Zoom stuff like with you and with Robert. And so basically that's it. That's my life in a nutshell.
Well, you mentioned the Lee Strasberg Institute. That's new to me. I didn't know you went there, so I didn't know that. I studied with Joanne Barron, D.W. Brown, and that's the same thing, the Meisner technique, right? The method?
Well, actually, no. The Meisner technique. Similar? Well, I never really studied Meisner, but I have friends that did, and I thought it was more like, it's that there's different exercises, those one-on-one things, and where you like, right. I don't know much about it, so I can't really say, but the method is more, some people make fun of it because it's when you remember, I'm sure you've heard about the stories like Christian Bale, where you can't talk to them, but in their character. That's the whole method thing where I think
Meisner uses the method too.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah.
I always wanted to study Meisner.
You're a method actor. And there's all these different ways to get there. They give you all these different tools to get there, but basically you are living through the experience. Okay. So you're really living it.
I always wanted to study Meisner because I had a lot of friends. The only reason why I went to Strasberg is because my dad, like I said, his friends were there, and he was so into it, so, and he paid for it. So I was like, okay, sure. But I always wanted to study at the Meisner technique, but I never did. But I have a lot of friends that swear by it even to this day, Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the more tools you have, the better. Mm-hmm. For me, it got me to a certain point, but then I had to go further on my own, because I don't think it was the be all end all. I don't think anything is, and everybody's different.
Good point.
Because when you're dealing with your emotions, you're really learning to control your emotions.
I totally agree. Because like I used to beat myself up that sometimes I couldn't get to the emotional place through the way I studied at Lee Strasberg. But when I started doing these little plays, and I know you came to some of them, and I would use some of the tricks that I learned. They would say some people get there through music, so I would play all these songs that really touched me, and that would remind me of a time and a place that I was trying to get to. So I did that. I'll never forget this. I think you came to this play. I was supposed to be committing suicide on stage. It was supposed to take place in the 60s, right? And it was a very costumey kind of period piece. So I was an actress that had moved to Hollywood, my character, and I gave up and I committed suicide on stage. And so every night, and basically you just see me in the dark, but I was like, I'm really going to do this. So I was backstage, like, getting to that spot, like where I had to commit suicide. Right. And I tortured myself every night just so I would be, and really you couldn't hardly see me, but I just thought it was so, I was so dedicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it worked out because I got some good reviews for that play, actually, in a different scene that we did. But so acting, I love the theater. I really do. All the little plays I've done, I really loved it. When you're in a theater company, gosh, you get so close to people, as I'm sure you know, when you're working on a set or a theater company. You guys, it's like a little bubble that you guys are in, and
like
just
family.
Yeah. And
really,
I'm still
very intimate.
Yeah, I'm still friends with people that I did plays with. My friend Corey, the one that I was telling you that teased me about, like, why do they want to know about from you guys? we did South Pacific dinner theater the days when they had dinner theater, and that was my first professional job where I got paid, and I could join equity. And I remember, I think I was getting like almost $400 a week. I remember, but that was when they had dinner theater. And Corey and I are still friends, and he's a great dancer, and he went on to go into Sunset Boulevard and all these other different things. But theater, I prefer theater to anything, but it's hard work because if you don't get paid, like Chris was saying earlier, you give so much of your time, rehearsals, all that stuff, that if you don't get compensated in some ways, it's not only that you feel like you should get paid, it's hard to live if you're not getting paid, right?
Right. So, you have to pay your bills. That's why,
right.
As I was saying before, I think we should subsidize artists, give them, if they show promise or dedication or whatever, give them, subsidize their maybe first 2 years of their starting their career. And I don't think we give enough credit to people that study the arts, because you're giving up a lot. You're taking a chance. And you and I both know there are so many people in Hollywood that never made it big, but they're so talented.
Sure.
And so not everybody makes it. Sometimes it's luck, and some people that aren't so talented make it because of who or the luck or whatever. So,
but if you subsidize, like, see, even theater, some people, like in Europe, in England, when I was there, I went to see plays, and I know people were getting paid, not a lot, but to do these plays. So even if you subsidize, like with equity plays, which are really hard to get into, some people make their living doing equity plays, but it's gotten so tough to make a living being a theater actor, because, like, even on Broadway, they use, stars a lot, and they don't use as many up and coming actors, but that's a whole other story. But yes, I definitely feel that people in the arts should be subsidized to a degree. I mean, if you've got talent, like you said, maybe give them a couple years of making, paying for their bills, paying the rent, and then they can make a choice after that, whether they want to go on.
I kind of feel like we should do that with all young people, everyone, give them, I believe in free education, which, free, nothing's free. Somebody has to pay for it, but we should pay for it out of our taxes. We pay up to high school. We should just extend it. So I think maybe 2 to 4 years of education. And then after you finish your education, the first 2 years, subsidize, their living expenses while they're figuring out what they want to do with their life, or while they're an apprentice or whatever. So anyway, but speaking of education, so you went to Lee Strasberg.
Right.
And then you've done other education. You went back to college.
Well, I was going to community college at the same time I went to Lee Strasberg, and then I was going to go to Cal State Fullerton, growing up in Orange County. But I actually took a year off and lived in Paris, because it's something I always wanted to do. I always wanted to live in Europe. And I remember I asked my mom, can I live in Europe for a year? And she said, okay. I don't know why, but she did. And so it's like, I know, she was very supportive. But that's what they call like a gap year now, but I don't think we called it a gap year. I was just like, I'm going to go live in Europe for a year. But I actually did go to school there. I went to the Alliance Française to study French, and I wanted to go to the Sorbonne, which is kind of like it's a little bit, let's say UCLA of Paris, right? But some technical things happened where I didn't turn in the right paperwork, so I ended up going there. So I ended up going to the Alliance Française. But I had an amazing time just learning French, but also soaking up culture. And I'd never been to Europe before, actually. That was my first time to Europe. So it was scary. It was really scary, though, because I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any family there. So I was kind of just on my own, and I made friends. And then I ended up getting a job as a singer in Italy through connections. When I was in France, through connections from my friend, actually, Laura Fuino, who talked about before. She came over too, and she ended up helping me get a job in Italy singing. So I was doing these tours of southern Italy, which I did for about 2 or 3 summers in a row. So I was doing all that, and then when I finally came home, I did the USO stuff. But then I ended up, I don't think I went back to Italy after that. Maybe I did, I don't remember. But at the same time, I was doing both of those type of things, right? So I was traveling a lot and singing. And in Europe, boy, talk about, they really appreciate if you're a singer. You know, that's one thing I always talk about. Everywhere I went, and I wasn't famous, but because I was American, they just assumed I was famous, right? So they were always like, she's a singer, you know, and they were like, clear the way, you know. And I never got treated with so much respect as when I was in Italy, you know. And we used to do other little weird things, like they have these soccer games that you can play. If you're an actress or singer, they put you in these soccer games and they pay you, and they put you against real soccer players, right? So Laura and I did one together, and it was so funny because they announced a couple credits I had over the thing when they like say your name and so is here and so is here, and they announce over the speaker like what you've done, and she's from America. So after the soccer game, we're in the area where you're changing your clothes and freshening up and what have you, and Laura was like, don't look behind you, but at the door there is a line around the block waiting to see you. They're all saying, because they thought she must be this big star, right? So I was like, oh my God. So she we're going to take you down the tunnel, and they put me in this car, and we all like escaped, you know, and I felt like I was one of the Beatles, you know what I mean?
That's cute.
That was like the most amazing story I ever had. So that's why I loved going to Italy, because they always treated me so well.
That's
but
so
anyways,
cute.
Yeah.
Well, so you've traveled a lot, and more than I even knew. I know you've traveled a lot. Where was your favorite place? Was it Africa, like you said, or was it?
Africa was definitely the top of the list. I would say the top 2. And then I told you the other day on the phone, and we never really talked about this, but I had been to Marlon Brando's private island because I was briefly dating one of his sons, who's half Tahitian, and he actually still lives there, his son. But long story, which we'll talk about on another podcast. But
that's a long story.
It's a whole story unto itself. But I went to Tahiti, and Marlon Brando had a private island called Tetiaroa, which is the size of like Catalina, let's say, maybe even a little smaller, but about that size. So anyway, I went. It was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, and it was, you know, even back then they were having Europeans come over, and for some reason, a lot of Europeans would go there, and they would stay in his little. He made these little kind of makeshift huts that were really nice huts, and they would be where you would stay right on the water. And I got to know Marlon Brando there. And like I said, that's a whole other story that we'll go into. But that was one of my most favorite memories of travel, because everywhere you went, you know, if they knew you were on the Marlon Brando island, they were like, oh, she's from Marlon Brando's island. And they would, you know, they give you free things wherever you went. It was like,
wow, that's fun.
I know, and Papeete, which is the capital of Tahiti, you know, that's where Marlon Brando and my boyfriend at the time, their family house was in the Papeete, which is the capital. So anyway, every time we go back to Papeete, they would be like, oh, they're the Brando family. So I would get free stuff wherever I went. And I didn't even ask for stuff. I was just like,
wow.
So, you know, the good old days, right?
Free is always good. Free is good.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was very, very young, so I was just like, oh, okay, sure, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
but anyways.
So yeah, I want to hear. We're going to do a special podcast about you and the Marlon Brando story, and because there's a lot to that, and I want.
Yeah, you had never heard that story before.
Well, I've heard bits and pieces, but I want to hear the whole thing from the beginning to the end. I want to hear it all.
The whole juicy story.
So see, we do have some interesting stories.
Yeah,
right? We're going to do a podcast on that.
Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I want to wish, you know, everybody for 2021, right? I'm hoping that this year, coming year, is going to be way better than 2020. Although you and I have done this great podcast, and I'm it's been cathartic for me. You know, I sure hope that everybody has a much better year next year, because
I know
we've gone through so much strife and
yeah.
discord, and you know.
Well,
so.
what I'm hoping is that we are re-examining our priorities. I feel like when the universe gives you hard times, it's an opportunity to improve. And so if we get the message, hopefully, you know, and hopefully, what was your, so when I asked you to do this podcast, the funny thing is, this is a little bit embarrassing to admit, we're both like, well, what exactly is a podcast?
No, you knew
well,
what a podcast is.
I knew because I watched podcasts for a long time. I watched YouTube videos. So I call all of them a podcast, but I literally got online because you were like, well, what? You're like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And then you're like, well, wait a minute.
What is it exactly?
What is it? You're just like, okay. And yeah, so basically it's just conversations, I guess, an internet show. But what was your interest? Like once we talked about it a little bit and
why did I want to do it?
Yeah, what do you think you'll get out of it?
Well, first of all, I always love a good challenge, as you know, right? And this is something that I have never done before.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I just thought it just sounded like a new fun adventure, and that we could, you know, for me, I wanted to do, of course, I always like, you know, topical things and politics and current events, but I also thought it'd be good to bring entertainment people on and talk to them. So I guess I just felt like I would learn a lot of stuff. And I know, you know, we don't always agree on things. We agree on core values, and we always agree on big things. I think our values are the same, but sometimes we come from it from different perspectives, maybe. Yeah. So I knew I would learn something that way. And I would learn, and I thought it would be good for me too, because although I love acting and singing, it's easier to me to be a character, and it's harder for me to be myself and just talk. So I thought it would be good for me to be on something like this where I just have to talk all the time and just, you know, be myself, because that is hard. I'm one of those people that, like, you know, in class when they'd say, okay, Miss Westervelt, I'd be like, oh God, no, stop me. You know, in class when they'd always say, we're going to introduce ourselves and blah, blah, blah. And so I am, little secret about me is I do not like talking about myself, believe it or not. So that's why I guess I like acting and singing, because you can become a character, and with, you know, singing it's a story. So, but I thought this would be good for me because I would be kind of confronted, you know, in a way. So for me, it was personal, selfish a little bit that way, but and it just seemed like a fun idea because we were stuck in our places. So.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said yes, and I feel like we're both having a good time. And as we grow, we hope that our audience grows with us. And please feel free, you know, anyone watching, to let us know in the comment section what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see us do. And
yeah, that's true. Good point.
Yeah. So you know, we're willing to do research on a topic and share it with, you know, what we learn about the topic. And we do plan on having more guests from our circle of friends and friends of friends. And so we hope to be entertaining, inspiring, and thought-provoking.
That's true. I like all those.
Yeah. Okay. So count you in. We can count on you.
Yes, I'm staying anyway.
Okay.
So Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and you know, season's greetings, whatever you celebrate. And so we will see you soon.
Yeah. And Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all that. So yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.